The ancient mystic Nostradamus says the zombie apocalypse is on our doorstep. Wait, what? Zombies? And who is Nostradamus again?
Nostradamus was a French seer who lived in the 1500s.
Nostradamus published yearly almanacs, mostly for farmers, predicting really the best times to plant and to reap crops. But he would also include some elements of entertainment for his readers to make it more user-friendly, shall we say.
The predictions were in part based on astrology. He had a prediction for each month of the year and sometimes a bonus prediction. And this was one of the features that made Nostradamus's almanacs very, very popular. He would write just 4 lines of poetry in what's known as a quatrain. He wanted to keep it short and pithy, kind of like a modern tweet on Twitter. And they would be very meaningful, vivid images of a future event.
But Nostradamus didn't just predict the year ahead. He also saw deep into the future.
His almanacs have dated prophecies, not just to the year, but to the specific month that the prophecy was supposed to happen.
Centuries before they happened.
Wars, plagues, tyrannical leaders, accidents, natural disasters, things that he felt future generations should know about.
Nostradamus predicted the rise of Hitler, the atomic bombing, the Kennedy assassination.
Tragic death comes to President John F. Kennedy.
The moon landing.
The Eagle has landed.
The death of Princess Di. 9/11.
Oh my God. I'm shaking.
And perhaps his most chilling prediction of all.
Few young people, half dead to give a start. Dead through spite, he will cause the others to shine. And in an exalted place,
some great evils to occur. Fathers and mothers, dead of infinite sorrows. The great one to be no more. All the world to end.
Few young people, like, it's almost like they're saying that that next generation is going to be the start of the downfall. Like, it caught my eye immediately. But at the same time, too, it's interesting hearing him say half dead, and then you associate it with zombies because they are technically dead, but they're still alive, they're still moving.
That sounds like a zombie apocalypse to me.
All through human history, there have been reports of the dead coming back in one way or another. Sometimes they come back in a frightening way, where the person hasn't just been raised from the dead, they've been brought back to life in a way where there's something wrong. They're not the same.
It spreads globally and kills most of the people. Nostradamus says 2/3 of the people in the world will be removed by it.
But that's not the only prediction Nostradamus drops supporting Z-Day.
Mabus then will soon die, and there will come of people and beasts a horrible rout.
Then suddenly one will see vengeance, 100, hand, thirst, hunger, when the comet will run.
Mabus here has been linked by some people to be the third Antichrist. He will die, and then will come beasts a horrible rout. But what that says to me is there's some kind of plague that can jump species, along the lines of what we think of as a zombie apocalypse. The last line of that quatrain says, 100 hand, thirst and hunger. Well, of course, what are zombies? They're hungry, ravenously hungry. And then it makes reference to a comet is thought to be thousands of times more massive than any comet ever detected by far.
And Nostradamus predicts that comet and the zombies it foretells will be here soon.
One of the reasons why zombies catch our attention is because they're a great example of science fiction being based on science facts.
And so the idea of zombies
showing up in Nostradamus' works, which were predictions and influenced by contemporary beliefs, fits in perfectly.
I have been preparing for it like since I was 10, so bring it on, I guess.
Okay, still don't trust the word of a 16th century soothsayer that the zombie apocalypse is about to happen? Well, he's not the only one who thinks so. Even our government has a plan for surviving our Z-Day.
2010, AMC launched The Walking Dead. And at the end of the first season, they blew the CDC up. So we were talking about how can we engage people? How do we really engage people on preparing an all hazards preparedness kit? And somebody mentioned how interested people were in zombies.
So the CDC posted a zombie guide and it kind of got everybody wondering, is there going to be a zombie apocalypse? Why the hell is there a zombie apocalypse preparation on the CDC website? Make this shit up, bro. This is the CDC website right here.
The Center for Disease Control is the country's top protector when it comes to America's health, safety, and security threats. For the past 75 years, it's worked tirelessly to keep the country safe from such pandemics as TB, polio, AIDS, Ebola, and COVID. Now, they've added the zombie apocalypse to their list. Their illustrated zombie preparation guide is full of helpful tips. Everything you'll need to be ready for the Walking Dead's rise.
It all seems very simple and all seems very common sense, and most people will claim, well, we've got that somewhere. But do you have it somewhere where you could find it if you had to find it? Do you have enough food?
This shit even comes with a damn checklist of everything you'll need during a zombie apocalypse. And in case you don't know, bro, the CDC is run by the government. Why does the government feel that we need to prepare for a zombie apocalypse?
We're not going to make it through that unless we're prepared, unless we've taken the steps and had the plan, make a kit, and stay informed.
First up, food and supplies.
In the modern world, we've implemented enormous numbers of conveniences. For many people, a zombie apocalypse rolling into town, you would see that softness would come back to bite men. And you can't just jump on your phone, hop onto an app and say, bring this to my front door for me. You would have to go out and find it. What happens when you can't just run to the grocery store when you're hungry? What happens when you get a cut and you don't have a Band-Aid to put on it?
When the zombie apocalypse comes, you'll want to find a place for your one-stop shopping.
True Prep is an emergency preparedness retail store. A lot of emergency preparedness items, so people love to come in and just get their hands on things and kind of see what we have. Prepping in its simplest form is really just self-sufficiency. I'm relying on myself to take care of me, so it's a big reason why I personally prep.
A true prepper to me is somebody that they basically have gone out and they have planned and strategized everything they've done, all their purchasing. And if you know you're worried about society failing or falling apart, having a power source, a generator, having food sources, having water sources, it all makes perfect sense.
What about toilet paper?
That's the last thing I'm worried about if it goes sour. I mean, there's 100 other ways to take care of your business than to have to go run get the Charmin, right? Okay.
Any good prepper knows that the first thing you need to have on hand is a bug-out bag.
A bug-out bag is exactly what it sounds like. It's a bag that you use to bug out with, so that when the zombies come, you can grab it and you can go in the woods and just hang out there for 72 hours.
So a bug out bag is going to have all kind of different things in it. Organization is huge in a bug out bag as well. So you don't want to just grab a bag and just start throwing stuff in there. You really want to be able to find out where everything is.
Fresh water and a supply of food are must-haves.
There's the rule of threes. 3 days, no water. 3 weeks, no food. That's when you're in trouble.
This particular bag has a bunch of just individual water pouches, which is pretty cool. It has a water bladder in here as well, so that could be filled up with water. These are emergency rations. This is going to be a high fat content, high calorie, and it's going to really give you the energy to get from point A to point B.
And don't forget other essentials like a first aid kit, sneakers, and an axe.
An axe will help you make a fire, make shelter. You don't have to use a lot of energy to wield it, which is paramount when it comes to surviving the zombie apocalypse.
As far as medical supplies, I think it would be really important to also have a big stockpile of antibiotics, bandaging, anything that can disinfect a wound. So if that means even hitting the liquor store and getting the highest proof alcohol you can, but as long as you have something to disinfect and a saw handy in case you get bit on one of your arms or legs, you should be set.
Whenever you're creating a bug out bag, I think it's a great idea to get your items together first and then find your bag. If you find a bag that's too big, you might feel compelled to really just fill it up, and it's going to start getting heavy.
If you do need to stock up on rations, you might think about getting freeze-dried food. Lots and lots of it.
Freeze-dried food doesn't need refrigeration. So if you have anything, an actual meal will last you 25 years. So if you want beef stew one day, it's going to be right there on your shelf. The beef stew is really good. Chili mac and the beef stroganoff. I like the granola because you don't have to heat the water.
You don't have to put yourself on a ramen and peanut butter diet. That to me is a little extreme, right?
If you're staying put to survive the zombie onslaught, be sure to stock up on shelf-stable foods. Or as they're more commonly known, canned goods. Pro tip: if your cans are in good condition, meaning no rust, dents, or swelling, they can last almost forever. Then there are those who prefer, shall we say, a 7-Eleven diet for the apocalypse.
I think for my zombie stockpile, food and drink collection, I definitely want a bunch of caffeine, lots of beef jerky, protein, keep the energy up, and maybe some Cheetos and Doritos to make myself feel good every once in a while. But you definitely want to keep your energy up. Anything that'll just keep you going.
But what do you do if you're locked down at home and all the grocery stores are overrun? Easy. Go farm to table with a home garden. Just be sure to plant seasonal crops, like fruits and vegetables for the warm months and root vegetables for the colder ones. So, you're set for food. But how are you going to stay hydrated when the water company's overrun by the Walking Dead? Just ask Wildfire Smile, a prepper with social media video views in the millions.
FEMA says that you should have about 1 gallon of water per person in your household. You can buy containers that hold water. I got this 5-pack of fold-down gallons for water. Just fill those up with tap water and store in a dark place out of direct sunlight. As soon as the power goes off, fill up your bathtub all the way with water. Now, it doesn't have a lid, so it can be contaminated, but you can still use it, and you can still drink it if you have the proper tools. This is a Sawyer mini water filtration system. It's rated for up to 100,000 gallons of water, so you can reuse this for a long time.
Water filtration is absolutely by far the most important thing that you should have in emergency preparedness, because we can live about 3 days without water. Your source could be from rain barrels, your neighborhood swimming pool, a mud puddle, or anything like that. But you need a source, and then you need a way to filter that water. I kind of think of filtering as taking out the big chunks, right? So the things that you don't want to chew on.
When the zombies take over, you're probably not going to have time to make it to the hardware store. So here's how to make a DIY water filter with supplies lying around your house. Grab a plastic 2-liter bottle, stuff the base, and top it off with a layer of sand. Fill 2/3 with charcoal and rocks. Then pour in your impure water. The top layers filter out the large particulate matter. Then the charcoal gives it a finer second filtering. Finally, drink. Okay, so when the death and destruction from the zombie apocalypse begins, at least you'll have food and water covered. But if you really want to prep for the army of the undead, you first need to know how to avoid becoming one. The old soothsayer Nostradamus says the zombie apocalypse is imminent. Like, soon. To prepare for this nightmare, you need to know as much as possible about what you're dealing with. starting with where the zombie outbreak may stem from.
There are absolutely things out there that could alter brain activity or could alter thought pattern, from a virus.
So where would a zombie apocalypse virus come from?
Hypothetically, if a zombie apocalypse were to occur, it could occur if rabies or something like rabies developed into a more transmissible form.
The rabies virus alters your mind into that kind of rage. You're not really quite yourself. You're more aggressive. It's not too far away to say that nature will find a way.
Think about what rabies does to a dog. It makes it hard for them to think clearly. It makes them more aggressive. They start biting, they start scratching, they start foaming at the mouths.
And just like rabies, this zombie scourge would attack the most vulnerable point of our body, our brain.
Zombies seem to have lost their personality. So this would suggest changes within the frontal cortex of the brain. These regions here, our cognition, our personality.
It's kind of like we stripped out every aspect of communication, every aspect of personality, but we left behind things like aggression. We left behind things like capacity for violence.
Bottom line, be aware of your environment. If your neighbor starts acting more like Cujo than Ken, you know the zombie apocalypse has begun. But viruses aren't Mother Nature's only way of turning things into the Walking Dead. Real-life parasites can do it as well.
There are a number of forms of zombie-like behavior that we can observe in the natural world. We see changes in rat behavior when they're infected with toxoplasmosis.
Toxocara plasma gondii, better known as the zombie parasite, is rooted in the intestines of cats. There, it begins reproducing and creating offspring parasites. But these little buggers don't stay inside their cat host for long. The feline unleashes the parasite on the world through its feces and urine, which in turn infects rodents in the area. And here's the insidious part. The parasite then acts like a Trojan horse inside its new rodent host, altering the code inside its brain. Now, not only are they no longer afraid of cats, they're actually drawn to them.
The rats, instead of normally being averse to the smell of cat urine, now find it something that they want to investigate. So you've got a change in the behavior of the rat due to this infection that makes the rat more likely to be caught by the cat, and therefore to then continue the cycle of infection with the species.
Now, imagine a human zombie outbreak following this same science. In other words, keep on the lookout for dramatic shifts in your loved one's behavior. It could be the first sign they've been infected by a zombie parasite. But perhaps the most shocking form of real-life zombieism happens in the insect world.
This is the fungus that might start the zombie apocalypse. Well, at least for ants, but if it did infect people, this is probably what would happen to us.
In nature, we have something called the cordyceps fungus, a fungus in South America that affects only ants. Basically what it does is the spores from a fungus will fall from a tree onto an ant. The fungus buries into the ant's brain, alters something in the ant's mind, forces the ant to climb to the tallest branch it can, and then from that point the ant dies, but the fungus actually erupts from it and spreads the spores down to other ants. And that's how the cordyceps fungus actually propagates itself. So right there, you actually have a living example of what we can consider a zombie. Something that is mind-altering and taking over the mind or forcing the body to do something. Or if you're in Florida, you have Florida Man doing all sorts of weird things.
May 26, 2012, Miami, Florida. Below this overpass, 31-year-old Rudy Eugene rips his clothes off and starts gnawing on a homeless man's face in broad daylight.
So I think everyone's heard of the guy in Florida who ate somebody's face off. I'd say that's definitely zombie-like behavior.
To see someone turn to cannibalism on someone in such an extreme and violent way, one would really want to have a better understanding of what was actually happening to that person at that time that could have caused such behavior.
Police say Eugene may have been taking a synthetic drug called bath salts. This mind-altering narcotic can cause violent, uncontrolled outbursts, not unlike what we see in, well, you know.
That would have been the zombie. That's what we would have seen happening.
A zombie apocalypse triggered by our own illicit drugs.
Zombies aren't actually just what we would consider science fiction. In the ancient Greek times, when someone was buried, the Greeks used to put stones on top of their dead in order to stop them from rising from the dead.
We have cases throughout Ireland and other countries where people were buried and then seemingly came back. Even in New England, there were traditions on how to prevent against people to rise as vampires, which we can kind of again see as a zombie, the idea of the undead walking. By the end of the 1800s, right around the time Bram Stoker is going to come out with his Dracula, there is a big fear of these zombies coming back and rising from the dead.
In Haiti, those same signs can be read as signs that this person is a zombie. This is not a national joke or a hoax or anything like that. Many people in Haiti really believe in zombies.
The Haitian zombie is more rooted in folklore and religion, and this kind of consists of taking a corpse that's recently passed and then harnessing that person's soul before it moves into the afterlife for your own gain. So this is very literally a mindless person who is under the control of your whim. Basically, the purpose of a Haitian zombie is to do the will of the owner. They're there as a servant to their master.
Some Haitian zombie cases can be explained away, but not all of them.
There are cases where someone has been declared clinically dead and has been buried and then has shown up years later and really been the same person and really been alive. A famous case of this is a man named Clervius Narcisse. In the 1960s, Mr. Narcisse was declared dead by two physicians, and then years later, he runs into his sister and says, I was taken out of my grave by a Bokor, and I was turned into a zombie.
The key to this modern-day zombieism is a kind of poison made by the pufferfish.
We have seen that used by Bokors or dark priests in voodoo when they would basically give this poison to an individual and their breathing would slow way down to the point that they were almost dead.
It will leave you paralyzed but conscious, which is one of the things that various people who experienced zombification have reported, that during the period they were supposedly dead, they actually were conscious the whole time.
So if somebody in a sinister lab decided, like, I'm going to take this, I'm going to alter it with these genetics, and make it do this, like we saw in the movie 12 Monkeys, just see it just completely devolve and spread super fast.
I think one of the number one things that a lot of us are going to jump to is that our government is experimenting.
Throughout the last 170 years, we have various experiments on civilians or on soldiers that we would no longer allow today, but that throughout our history have.
I think it's absolutely possible that there could be experimentation going on because we've seen it in the past.
There have been many documented cases of doctors and even the U.S. government using innocent people as human guinea pigs.
We have the gynecological experiments by a doctor on enslaved women in the 1800s. We have the Tuskegee experiment on black men with syphilis in the 1930s to 1970s. And One of the most maybe well-known is the U.S. government experiments from the 1950s to the 1970s.
During that Cold War era, the CIA began testing a new man-made drug they hoped would lead to mind control. It was called LSD.
It was attempted by a portion of the U.S. government to see what LSD did to the human brain and if it could be used as a weapon.
These once classified studies were shut down decades ago. Still, could the government be testing new drugs today? The kind that turn people into man-eating beasts?
I certainly wouldn't want to be accusing the government of dosing somebody with something that causes them to act like a zombie.
The question of whether the U.S. government can still be carrying out unethical experiments on people, most likely the answer is yes. We won't find out for decades that all of this happened.
So, what if a zombie drug really is being manufactured and tested today? Could someone unleash such a biological weapon on the world and trigger a zombie apocalypse?
If somebody really wanted to, that had the ability and the capability to introduce a foreign substance or a toxin or a poison into a water supply, overall, it's definitely possible that something like that could be introduced.
I suppose this could be used as a biological weapon by different factions, but it's crazy to try to speculate on just what it could actually be or who could actually be behind it.
So you know how the zombie apocalypse will start. Now you've got to prepare yourself for the spread.
If a pandemic-type zombie event were to occur, we would expect there to be a patient zero, a first person to be infected.
And it then spread from one person to another, either by physical contact or in an airborne way.
Once the zombie plague enters your bloodstream, it takes root, festering.
So, let's just say you've got 12 days of transmissibility. After 3 days of an incubation period, that's 15 days. That means that when you contract it, that is 15 days to spread that virus to anybody who's in contact with you.
You may not know it's here, but then all of a sudden everything comes to fruition and you start to see it take effect. Within a matter of weeks, it's on other sides of the country.
Let's take Los Angeles, for instance. Let's say it started there. I think it will spread extremely fast because everybody getting on planes from LAX going to different parts of the world, now that's spread across the ocean. You know, you're not going to be able to contain that. So within 2 weeks, you've got massive transmissions on a global scale. It's out of control.
They start biting, they start scratching, they start foaming at the mouths.
Insomnia and delirium, their eyes look sunken, like close to a skeleton, that zombie appearance.
It's too late to stop it. The zombie apocalypse is taking over the planet. If you want to survive, you're going to need to hunker down and fortify the home front. We've got tips on how. It's the zombie's monstrous bite, tearing at its victim's flesh with an unrelenting fervor that terrifies us the most.
The reason that zombies attack in such a frenzied manner is probably a mix of their craving for living flesh, but also their rabid state. So they are completely irrational, completely rage-filled beings. They're attacking and eating.
Zombies, in a sense, are a pack of wolves, where they know that they have to support each other in order for all of them to survive.
Zombies would be incredibly dangerous. They are able to proliferate their numbers relatively quickly. One bite is all it takes.
I would saw my leg off in an instant if I got bit. I'd have to.
If you want to avoid the undead's bacteria-laden bite, you're going to need the right gear.
A lot of people make the mistake of thinking that they need to look cool to survive the zombie apocalypse, but the more armor you wear, the more weighed down you are. But the heavier the armor, the harder it's going to be to move So I would suggest you wear bracers because you could keep a zombie back just by putting your arm up.
Of course, some experts say there's an even simpler solution to avoid being bitten.
The best way to defend yourself against a zombie is to stay quiet and stay away from them. That sounds so cliche and the easiest thing to do, but I'd say staying away is your best defense.
If you want to survive the hordes of mindless brain eaters, your best bet is to simply hunker down. So for the next item on your prepping list, you'll need shelter.
The best plan is to stay put in your house. If you know your house, if you know your neighborhood, if you've made the prior plans to it, you know that area better than anybody else. You can plan your escape routes. You can barricade certain exits so there's only one way in and only one way out that you know.
Your ideal location is always going to be your home. I truly believe that. If you can take your home and just have it ready, that is by far the best place. You can do things to your home to make it your safe place, your own little fortress. Because, I mean, if you imagine the entire city just picking up and heading out, it's just complete chaos. I mean, where are they going?
If you are prepared for 72 hours, that gives you 3 days to sit at home and watch everybody else fight for resources and die. Less population, the less zombies are going to be around.
I'm just trying to hold my place for the time being, and I'm trying to forecast where things are going to go. Are they going to take a turn for the worse? Are we going to see riots and chaos?
Some doomsdayers aren't going to hang out in home sweet home when the zombies come. They have, shall we say, alternative accommodations.
Preppers have been buying these old Cold War bunkers, and they've been fixing them up.
It's almost like a little mini home, right? So you're eating, you're drinking, you're sleeping, you're going to the bathroom, hopefully you're showering, and you're keeping yourself entertained. A bunker is just kind of like a little miniature house underground that you can survive in.
Do I have a plan for the zombie apocalypse? I definitely would do bunker. That way nobody knows where you are. If it's underground, I don't think a zombie is gonna think, oh, let me dig right here, and oh, what do you know, doors. Like,
just don't bring any guests.
You'll be hard-pressed to find someone who's gonna really kind of let you know what's going on, because it defeats the purpose, right? There's gonna be bunkers out there you're never gonna know about. You could walk past one walking your dog straight on top of one, you're never gonna know.
Some folks take their bunkers to the extreme, ready for the worst-case scenario.
Guys, I'm Ron Hubbard from Atlas Survival Shelters. This is what I do. I go install bunkers. There's a special lock right here that you have to reach your hand into. Pull this kind of lock out right here. And then the hatch will pretty much open up on its own. We're actually going down in a shelter. You can have a staircase if you don't want the ship's ladder, but I have no problem with the ship's ladder. This is 20 feet underground. So when you walk into your shelter, this is what you'd find after a month. Have your clothes underneath here, all your food is stored underneath the floors. You have your bathtub, sink, vanity, bathroom back there. Now, if for any reason your shelter was invaded or you had to get out of here quick, you can make your clandestine escape through the escape tunnel.
While some are reclaiming old bunkers that have stood the test of time, others are building state-of-the-art luxury facilities for the new millennium.
It's a little rich for my blood to have my own bunker, and that might be a little extreme for somebody on a limited budget, but there are people out there that go full tilt.
Back in the day, bunkers were seen as a way to ensure survival from an all-out nuclear war.
In my generation, what we always thought was we were going to go to bed, there was going to be a nuclear war, and that was it. We would never wake up. And so that was the life we knew.
It's zombies, not commies, that terrify us today. But not all zombies are alike. They come with a terrifying assortment of behaviors and attack modes. If you want to survive them, you gotta know your enemy first.
I think what terrifies me the most about zombies is what kind of zombies will we get. No zombie is ever truly the same. There's always different types.
There are a ton of different kinds of zombies. A zombie threat depends on its speed and how many numbers there are around you. If there are a lot of zombies, even if they're slow, it's going to be very difficult to move around them. If it's one zombie but he's fast, it's going to be very difficult to get away.
So if we got like the really fast zombies, I know that there's no way I'm going to make it. Like versus like the slower ones, you know, it will take them 7 years to finally get you.
Slow zombies are much more preferred. Fast zombies scare me.
All right, you're afraid that you're not fast enough? Zombies can run. You're afraid that you're not smart enough? These zombies know how to communicate and can work together in a pack-like manner. You don't think that you're strong enough? Well, these zombies could punch through doors. That just sets the stage for panic and anxiety to start to become overwhelming.
Fast or slow, all zombies share one characteristic.
I think probably the most noticeable trait of a zombie is going to be that they're trying to eat your face off.
If you want to survive the different types of Walking Dead headed your way, you gotta know your enemy.
A common question is, what would a zombie brain would look like? We can break this into 3 different types of zombies. So let's take the first type of zombie. This is the slow shuffling type zombie.
The shuffler, and this is the one that kind of slowly walks. They maybe grunt a little bit as they're moving. They're not quick, they're not excited, they're just slowly trying to get the flesh.
They have an effect of the zombie virus or agent on their movement centers of their brain. But these zombies also seem to be a very primitive animal type phenotype or personality. That is, they don't communicate in the same way that a normal human does. They don't vocalize, they merely make noises, grunts, etc. So this would suggest that we have got changes within, say, the frontal cortex of the brain. This is these regions here that give us our emotion, our cognition, our personality.
Those shuffler zombies, they aren't the brightest when it comes out of all the zombies.
Our advice for surviving shuffling zombies? Remain aware of your surroundings at all times, so they don't sneak up on you.
A second type of zombie that's depicted in popular fiction could be considered the rage zombie.
I think probably the scariest zombie, in my opinion, is the rage zombie. When we think of zombies, we want them to be these slow and stupid creatures that we can outrun. But as soon as you give them the capability of running faster than a human, you're done. It's over. Human card revoked.
I won't lie, that terrifies me. The idea of seeing this monster running at warp speed towards me, just like Usain Bolt.
Elite sprinters, like Usain Bolt, can run in bursts of nearly 28 miles per hour. But the average human runs just 8 miles per hour. That means you'd have to run nearly 3.5 times faster than a rage zombie to get away, even if your life depended on it. Think you could do it?
These zombies, typically faster, typically more angry. So what we would expect to see with this type of zombie would be a change in the way the brain is perceiving the normal environment, such that it's fearful, it's angry, it has rage. We know that there are certain brain regions that are associated with fear, anger, and rage. We see it in the so-called fight or flight response. These are brain regions that make us decide whether or not we will stand our ground and fight or whether or not we're going to run away. So these rage zombies one could perceive quite easily as being this heightened fear response, but just amplified.
The rage zombies are extreme and scary. We hope that we see a shuffler. Always do cardio. That's one of the rules, because you never know if you're going to encounter that type of zombie. I would tell my mom, like, if this were to happen in real life, like, I wouldn't even let them have the chance to kill me. Like at this point, like, I would just do it myself.
But speed and anger aren't the rage zombies' only deadly traits.
Some zombies are wet noodles, where they can just barely move their limbs and they're just slowly making their way across the street or going towards their prey. But then you have those rage zombies where they do have super strength. They can try and fight to grab you and eat you.
But what some see as rage, others see as simply the zombies' unstoppable determination to hunt down their prey at all costs.
If anything, they're going to have less strength than a human, just the insatiable need for flesh.
If you want to survive rage zombies, be sure to look for the telltale signs of speed, fury, and laser determination, so you don't suddenly find yourself trapped.
Then we've got a final type of zombie, which is a more rare form. And this is one that is more associated with brain eating, the craving of eating brains.
When it comes to the brain eater zombies, we know stereotypically, like, yes, of course, their main focus is, oh, we need to go for the brain. With other zombies, they don't care what they are eating. Like, they'll eat your limbs, they'll eat your guts, like, they'll go for anything they have. But the brain eater's main source is the brain.
As a horror fan, one of my favorite zombies is the brain-eating zombie. Crawling out of the grave and going after brains, it's kind of the classic thing that we think of when we think zombies. We're thinking brains. But I think what terrifies us so much about zombies is that we are their target. Not dogs, not cats, not horses.
At first glance, you may not be able to distinguish a brain eater from his zombie brethren. So our advice, wear a helmet. But of all the things zombies can easily eat, why brains?
There's a very powerful craving mechanism within our brains. It's a reward system. It's essential for how we function physiologically. A zombie that is craving brains, there's some sort of hijacking of the social barriers and norms of not killing someone, basically, and eating their brain.
So if zombies are taking over the world, why don't they just eat each other instead?
They know they're dead. They know that that being looks exactly like them. They know there's no beating heart. There's no brain waves. Versus when you see somebody running, or you hear a heartbeat, or you see them breathing, you realize, wait, this is a live thing. Fresh versus something that's decomposing. So I think they can taste the difference.
Zombies want living flesh. They don't want to eat undead flesh. And also, I think that would be a really easy way to eradicate themselves. They're trying to spread this condition and eat and consume. They're not going to consume each other.
Okay, taking notes on how to survive the zombie apocalypse? Let's review. Know your enemy, keep on the move, and don't let them eat you. Easy enough, right? But when it comes to outlasting the undead, there's one more trait to keep in mind. As the outbreak continues to spread, more and more people around the world start exhibiting terrifying behavior. They lose control of their motor skills, explode in chilling outbursts of violence. But did you know they also have their own language? If you want to survive, you better understand what they're saying.
The difference between a zombie grunt, a zombie scream, and a zombie roar, I think it's the intent behind each one. A zombie grunt would sound like, or a zombie screech would be like, or even just like a zombie roar.
So when we hear zombie grunts, that tells me the zombie is not got its eyes on the target yet.
They don't know you're there. They're just reacting the way they usually react throughout the day.
But when they find you,
a zombie roar definitely is to scare, instill fear into you.
When we start hearing screams and raging from a zombie, that's indicative of them finding prey and they're chasing it. As soon as they start, that's when they've seen what they want.
If you hear it as a human in a zombie apocalypse, you're gonna immediately process, oh, they found me. They found me right on the spot. They're coming for me.
As the feasting hordes multiply, the zombie apocalypse transforms our once bustling cities into ghost towns.
Once people started seeing the effects and once people started becoming symptomatic, that's when you're going to have the public health community and the medical community start scrambling for a cure, scrambling, trying to figure this thing out, trying to develop ways to stop it.
By then, we'll need agencies like the Centers for Disease Control to step in, if it's not already too late.
We would deploy a team, we'd develop hypotheses on how to fight this, and we would handle it much the same way we would handle any other outbreak. You would see restricting of flights, you would see precautions taken at airports, many of the same reactions that we would take for any kind of pandemic threat.
Even a fast and clear response might not be enough. If the zombie outbreak is like other pandemics we've seen, it won't back down.
So how problematic would a real large-scale zombie apocalypse today be? It really comes down to, can we fund the research that's needed, and how do we create a vaccine or treatment for it?
Vaccines and other drugs may slow the zombie spread, but they won't stop it. It will do whatever it must to survive and thrive.
Viruses are the perfect predator. They basically make themselves propagate through hosts. And if they have to mutate, guess what? They mutate.
And as the zombieism spreads like wildfire, so does the chaos.
Zombies start to become like packs of wolves. A zombie is pure threat.
Within probably about a month and a half, you've got infrastructure breaking down, police, fire, medical, even logistics supply chains breaking down. Probably about a week later is when the military would have to come in and set martial law and actually provide military quarantines. You went from normal society to no society to a lawless society almost overnight. It would be very fast and it would basically be unstoppable.
When the army of the living dead rise up, you'll need to call on some primitive survival skills. Nah, we're not talking about those skills. We mean choosing the right weapon. The zombie apocalypse is upon us. So what do you do when you find yourself face to face with one of these mutant creatures and running's not an option? The experts say, arm yourself. Chuck and his friend Charles are the creators of the hit site Zombie Go Boom.
When the zombie apocalypse arrives, will you survive? Using real-life settings, we put the weapons, everyday objects, and theories to the test. Learn the best ways to bash undead skulls and stay alive in any situation. Zombie Go Boom. Kick undead ass.
They've made it their life mission to distinguish fact from fiction when it comes to taking out real-life zombies.
Hey, what's up, survivors? Welcome to another mind-blowing episode from the bloodiest show on YouTube, Zombie Go Boom. I'm Chuck Murray.
I'm Charles Foltz.
And today we have a mind-blowing one for you. We're going to be testing out the Brooklyn Smasher.
This 34-inch long mammoth jammer can crush and smash you with its 2-pound and 7-ounce weight.
Any idea as to how you're going to do it?
Well, I'm just going to run up and smash his face, Brooklyn style.
I think a lot of people just want to see what's more realistic, what would actually happen, so that if, in the eventuality of the zombie apocalypse coming to fruition, they can actually expect the right things.
It's pretty satisfying. You got blood all over me.
I started loving zombies whenever I picked up the first volume of The Walking Dead. And after that, it was just zombie movies for me. I started with Dawn of the Dead, Night of the Living Dead, Land of the Dead. 28 days later, I just couldn't get enough.
A pencil can kill a zombie?
Zombie Go Boom is one part Mythbusters, one part The Walking Dead. We essentially create these ballistic gel head analogs in order to find out which weapons and or objects will actually crack a skull and save you against the zombie.
Yeah!
Because when it comes to killing zombies, everyone knows the cardinal rule.
Wow, dude.
Oh, gosh. You shoot it in the head, you destroy the brain, you inflict massive blunt force trauma to the head because that's where the brain activity is.
What's making them want to eat or crave humans and crave brains and crave organs is coming from that brain. That brain is telling them, wait, there's food right in front of me. So if we basically kill the brain, there's no function. They're not going to be moving anymore. They're not going to be alive anymore because that's the only thing living.
It's kind of ironic, too, because that is the organ they tend to crave the most. But destroy the brain and you destroy the zombie.
What you really want to do is find a weapon where it takes very little effort to get through the zombie head.
It's a one-hit kill.
Let's try something else. Chuck's first piece of advice: put down the chainsaw and pick up something a little more practical.
The chainsaw is the most overrated weapon ever. It'll get snagged on clothes and then stall out.
There it goes. There it goes. See, that's what happened the last time I tried it.
It's also incredibly heavy. You're gonna get very, very tired very quickly.
It takes gas, oil. It takes quite a few, pulls to even get it to turn on.
Terrible weapon.
Your best bet when fighting zombies is anything you can hold tight, swing, and strike.
This is definitely a one-hit kill, and the weapon is actually pretty light for the amount of ridiculous damage that it actually does.
Picking a weapon that is comfortable or picking a weapon where you don't have to use a lot of energy to wield it is paramount when it comes to surviving the zombie apocalypse.
God damn it.
A war hammer would be perfect. A regular hammer is fine. A baseball bat is okay. You're just gonna have to hit the zombie a few times.
All right, let's inspect the damage. It's a huge hole. Look at the. That's pretty.
Yeah, and that's the parietal bone bits going into the brain, so that's definitely a kill.
But not everyone can be Braveheart when it comes to fending off zombies.
I would not recommend fighting off zombies. I'll leave that to the DoD guys and the other experts on weapons.
Of course, there are more traditional weapons to choose from.
I would say most preppers that I know also have firearms, plenty of ammo and things like that too. Just taking care of business is a good idea.
If you haven't owned a firearm, you consider it, get some training. A firearm's a tool just like anything else.
The Matt Barnett-made .44 Magnum round moves at about 1,500 feet per second and contains about 1.5 grams of explosives. Basically, once this round hits a zombie, it fragments into 2 pieces, the lead on one side and the copper jacket on the other, creating a huge fireball that promises to make a zombie go boom.
There's obviously firearms, which are incredibly effective, except if you run out of ammunition. And they're also loud, so you're calling a bunch of zombies in every time that you fire.
So, you better have a dead eye when it comes to killing the living dead.
Holy crap.
Wow. We thought this was just a clean like explosion off the top, but like I pushed down on it a minute ago and it's disgustingly broken in several pieces.
If you shoot a zombie in the head, it goes down. If you don't, guess what? It's going to bite you as you walk past it.
So, what do you do when the zombies still keep coming and overrun your home?
I'm not going to let someone bite me. I'm going to get out of Dodge.
You're going to need to find a new safe haven. A pestilence that turns people into zombies is rapidly spreading across the planet.
By that point, your infrastructure services are already breaking down. You've already lost the rule of law.
So you're not really thinking about like, all right, like Netflix and chill anymore. Now you're thinking a lot more, how do I not get eaten?
Easier said than done when it comes to surviving the zombie apocalypse. Because contrary to popular belief, zombies don't lay down when the sun sets.
They don't ever sleep, they just rest. Let me just stand here for Lord knows how many hours or days until all of a sudden a human comes by. Zombies are gonna be active 24/7. There's no downtime, you always have to be on edge, you always have to be alert.
I think they're just going to find flesh whether the sun is out or not.
So you gotta be on your guard day and night.
Most people are going to be better off initially in their home. But if their home becomes a risk, they're going to have to take that into consideration. If you'd had 30 people try to storm your house in a day, it might be time to go bye-bye for a while, right?
We're going to be running from these hordes of mindless zombies. We're going to be having to hide out in malls and find weapons in sporting goods stores like we see in movies.
So, your zombie prepping list better have an evacuation plan.
With the zombies swarming around your house, it becomes so important to have things already thought out. You know, we're going to go to this car, we're going to go to this rendezvous point. If we need help, this is where we go to for this particular neighbor or relative. But to have this worked out in advance with the neighbors and relatives as well. Have a plan.
You have to find that group that you absolutely know that are trustworthy, that are going to be reliable. Should be at least maybe like 4 or 5 people, not 10 or 20.
But not everyone agrees.
Don't trust anyone. Stay away from big populations. Keep your group really small. Stay away from others. Try not to be seen by humans or zombies. I would say probably try to go solo if you can.
It's when you don't have an evacuation plan. You don't have enough money. You don't have your children's or your spouses or your medical records or your medicines. That's when you introduce just one more level of complexity and chaos to an already chaotic and complex situation.
Have a kind of strategy where it's more of a act sooner rather than later. If you were the one who was going to leave right away. Don't wait for the choke points to be established.
We all have zombie apocalypse plans. Everybody has an idea on who's going to pick up the kids. How many kids can you fit into your minivan? Do the kids have to wear the seatbelts or not when you're attempting to escape from the zombie apocalypse? Are the roads going to be closed? Like, these are the layers that conversations have gone to. Where are you going to try to go?
When it's time to turn to plan B and hit the open road, you're going to need the right getaway vehicle.
In the event of a zombie apocalypse, I would require 2 vehicles. One would need to be a tank-like, Jeep-like vehicle with lots of armor on the side, minimal window, as much coverage on the windshield as I can. Preferably something up front that will just ram through zombies. On the flip side, I'd like to have within that vehicle some kind of quick bike, motorcycle that I can quickly get out of my tank vehicle, run into the city, get what I need, come back out to the tank vehicle and head out as quickly as possible. I think it's important to both protect yourself, but also be quick and efficient and quiet.
If I were to choose a vehicle, I don't want it to be too easily accessible. I want it to be strong. And I would immediately think of like one of those SWAT vehicles. Like they're strong, they have like bulletproof windows and that stuff. So something that they can't break to get into. So where you're in a safe space, your safe haven.
And if you don't have time to run out to the dealer, how about a few tips on how to convert your hoopty into a homemade zombie-busting Hummer from the pros down under on YouTube's Mighty Car Mods. Grease Monkeys Marty and Moog are the experts when it comes to kick-ass DIY renos. Their shows have garnered over 500 million views, and their incredible creations have been featured in such blockbusters as Fast and Furious, Mad Max Fury Road, and Transformers.
Today we're going to be showing you how to zombie-proof your car. We're going to be working on a 1987 Nissan Pathfinder four-wheel drive. There's also heaps of space in the back which you're going to need for supplies and weapons, but the first thing we need to do is stealth the car up by blacking it out, and then we need to armour up the windows so the undead can't eat your brain. Here, they can't get in.
But some zombie experts say best to keep things simple.
The best transportation during a zombie apocalypse would be a motorcycle, if you have one. If you don't, perhaps a bicycle, except you are running on your own energy. So it's good since you don't have to fill it up, but at the same time, you don't want to get too tired.
If you stop, a low profile is a must when it comes to survival.
If you make a lot of noise, you're going to attract problems. So just kind of be stealthy about it, be quiet, don't be screaming, don't get in too much of a hurry, because that's when you make mistakes.
As you head out across the zombie-filled landscape in search of your new home, you need to think about where you want to put down roots. The advice from the experts? Choose wisely. The zombie apocalypse's mindless hordes have driven you out of home sweet home. Now you need to find some safer digs.
Like real estate, location matters tremendously. Stay away from the major cities in that case. If you're from there, have a backup plan. Get out of Dodge.
In the event of a zombie apocalypse, I think I'd want to go somewhere that I know others aren't going to go. So a lot of people I think would look for the mansion on top of the mountain behind the Hollywood sign, away from everybody. I don't want that. I want to preface this by saying that I have literally acted this entire scenario out. If I had to survive a zombie apocalypse, I would definitely get some sort of stronghold that is away from population, but still close enough that if I needed to gather supplies, I could.
Some experts urge to get off grid fast. The fewer humans, the less prey. And less prey means less zombies.
I think it's all based off of terrain, off of whether or not they can get the food supply that they need, getting the brains, getting the organs. Like, if they can't get access to the things that they need to survive, they're not going to survive. So you'll see them slowly start to die off because there's no one around that they can eat. So in a sense, they start starving.
The kind of climate I would go for in a zombie apocalypse would be somewhere very hot and somewhere that would not be attractive to humans, therefore not be attractive to zombies. So if they happen to trek that far, they may not make it in one piece. Like, they would deteriorate in the sun.
But others suggest a different survival strategy.
Best climate would probably be somewhere where there is a lot of rain. They're not going to be able to hear you running or shuffling because it's masked by the sound of rain. England or Oregon or Washington, where it's always cloudy weather. Anything that throws off the zombies.
If we had some sort of a zombie apocalypse occur, where would you not want to be? Population centers that are valley cities situated along rivers.
In other words, avoid the Northeast.
Not only are you contending with population density that exists naturally in that spot, but the major thoroughfares mean that you would have individuals who, under extreme circumstances, may be looking to go to less populated areas. And the way you do that is by jumping into a vehicle, getting on these interstates, and driving there. You're introducing a whole lot of risk while also being stuck in a situation that is not easy to escape. As a result, you increase the survival pressure.
I think cities are going to be more of a trap. These people are very used to having everything easy. They're not going to know how to rough it.
And again, you're either going to be a contributor or you're going to be a detractor. The South may find themselves taking far more than they can give, and they may find that they're given very little as a result of that. What you're going to look for more are places that have resources that could sustain, survival.
You want to be in places like North Dakota, South Dakota, Montana, the Midwest Plains area, Wyoming, Utah, things like that, just because there is so much land and so many ways to isolate yourself, a group of people, from what's going on.
They have access to natural food supplies, fish in certain areas, game animals, more open air. But you gotta remind yourself there's a reason that parts of our map have lower population densities. It's typically because living there has difficulties that make it so that people aren't necessarily always pulled into those places.
Some experts believe a water barrier's a must.
When I think of zombies and water, I don't think they can swim. I don't think they would have the brain power to even think of how to do that. They're just, need food.
But others aren't so certain.
Originally, I thought zombies couldn't swim because when bodies decompose, there's like bloating. So I think because of that decomposition, it actually helped in their favor where, I can get across the water and get these people now.
No matter how prepared you are, one thing's for certain: the zombie apocalypse will be terrifying.
The zombie represents two of the biggest things that as humans we naturally are against. We don't like aging. We don't like the idea of death. Zombies represent this monster that we've created from our most central fears.
I think the scariest trait of the zombies is the face. Because the first thing that you notice on a person is the face. You make eye contact or you observe their features. Like seeing the discoloration, seeing the sunken eyes, seeing different, I hate to say the word, juices oozing out of them.
To conquer our fears, we've embraced zombies as cultural icons.
Are you all ready for your 2021 CreepyCon Zombie Beauty Pageant?
So today I was going for kind of like a zombie pinup vibe. This is actually one of my haunt costumes. I'm a haunt actor.
I had this dress from a thrift store that I was going to use for an apocalyptic photo shoot anyway, so me and my dogs went out in the yard and ripped it to shreds.
This was a dress I wore to a rehearsal dinner for my nephew's wedding. I'd like to think that I was a guest at a very fancy cocktail party before I got turned into a zombie.
Zombie Beauty Pageant, Queen of 2021, Miss Oak Ridge! Do you want a speech?
One of the compelling and interesting ideas about zombies is they're based within the elements of science facts, and then we twist on it and we play on it and we add our own fears to it.
It's a possibility in the future that something like this might happen. A zombie might be created by accident. Who knows? That kind of fear and that idea is always present.
I would not be surprised if zombies happen.
I don't want to use the word virus because,
And there have been cases of people being on drugs and eating other people.
I don't not believe.
So yeah, I very much believe that zombies could become a thing, and that's what's so terrifying about them.
But here's something that may comfort you. Don't look for any zombie babies as the next wave of attack.
Can zombies reproduce? They're not doing 50 Shades of Grey. The only way that we know that they can reproduce is basically by biting. The more bites, the more infections, the more they grow, the more zombies you're gonna get.
Zombies can definitely reproduce. They bite you, and then you turn into a zombie. But as far as like bound chicka ow ow, no. And I don't think any of us want to see that.
So, how will you survive long enough to see the zombie apocalypse end? Scientists may have the answer. Some say all this zombie talk is crazy, and that Nostradamus' prediction of a zombie apocalypse is overblown.
Few young people, half dead to give a start, dead through spite, he will cause others to shine, and in an exalted place some great evils to occur. Fathers and mothers, dead of infinite sorrows, the great one to be no more, all the world to end.
Nostradamus says 2/3 of the people in the world will be removed by it.
But there's one thing Nostradamus didn't foresee: how the zombie apocalypse would end.
So we have this idea that zombies don't ever die because they are undead. That doesn't mean they can't deteriorate. Eventually, a zombie is going to get to the point where they're no longer a threat. The teeth are going to fall out, the bones are going to start decaying, the flesh is going to rot off. Eventually, they would decay so much that they wouldn't become a threat to us.
But how much trouble are we going to be in while we wait for those billions of pesky zombies to just die off? You know, the shufflers. The rage zombies. And the brain eaters.
On a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being basically make it unscathed, I'm going to give it an 8. Moderately screwed. As far as who is the last person standing in the zombie apocalypse, a simulation says 300 people will only be left. That's really low. I'm thinking more like 30 million, let's say on the low scale, 30 million people will be left.
Fortunately, we won't have to wait for natural selection to take its course.
We have learned lessons from COVID, and we have been able to develop vaccinations very quickly. We can make a vaccine in 18 months and actually begin vaccinating hundreds of millions of people within 6 months. Once it calms down, so maybe day 180, day 250, someplace in that range, that's when you start seeing people come out and trying to look at their new world that they live in.
Congratulations! Your prepping checklist helped you survive the zombie apocalypse. You followed our advice: securing food and supplies, shelter, weapons, an evacuation plan, a getaway vehicle, new digs when the shit hit the fan, and knowing your enemy. Now what? As lucky survivors slowly emerge from their bunkers, they'll enter a world turned upside down.
We don't know if we're going to still have those electric plants. We don't know if oil is still going to be around, if there's going to be a way to access the oil, or if it's going to be shut off completely. There's a lot of different resources that we would have to try and find all over again in order to survive. So I feel like it would be the same thing, say if it was 100 years into the future or 200 years, you have to take a lot of time and to rebuild the country back into what it was before.
We've made it through ice ages. We've made it through other extinction level events. And yet, like rats and cockroaches, humans find ways to survive even under extremely pressing circumstances. It may not be pleasant, but where there's a will, there's a way. It's part of human nature, being social creatures, to want to actually look towards others for assistance and support in this. And I form a cooperative alliance with these individuals and form a group that can now start to work together to overcome obstacles, work together to survive. There are those who will pivot towards, I want to survive, and there are those who will go into a direction of, I want to thrive, no matter what the cost.
I think if all the zombies died out, that we would probably live a life similar to the life we're living now. Lots of social distancing. I think quarantining would be way more hardcore. I don't think people would be congregated in cities like we are now. Lots of people staying away from each other, not as much congregating in large areas. And I think a lot of people will resort back to our roots, which is going out and farming land in the middle of nowhere just to keep away from the risk of becoming a zombie.
It's the end of the world. It doesn't mean that the Earth exploded, but the world as I defined it no longer exists. And it's now my job to redefine it and to figure out what my role is and how to survive in it.
Everything at that point from society has basically devolved into nothing. We are living however we want to. They will have to rebuild and adapt, and it will force the next step of human evolution.
I hate to say it, but it kind of comes down to the survival of the fittest.
What scares me more than zombies in an apocalyptic situation would probably be other humans. Humans are the worst enemy of humans. In times of struggle and chaos, it tends to bring the worst or the best out of us, but oftentimes it's the worst. I would be terrified in any apocalyptic situation where resources are low or you're fighting to survive. I'd probably rather encounter a zombie.
Will survivors be ready to deal with the new normal? Experts say they better be.
My advice to the people who are not prepared is good luck. If the power goes down, our gas is affected.
The internet is gone, the electricity is gone, the running water is gone.
Frozen food, medical supplies, basic first aid.
Life as you know it ends. With emergency preparedness, if you are ready for something, you're ready for everything.
We can put on the blinders, we can pretend that everything's okay, but if the sky is falling, eventually it's going to land on your head.
For my own family, if we ever have like a cell phone outage, it's a crisis. Can you imagine not having your cell phone or the zombies swarming around your house?
I'm pretty stubborn, so I'm not going to give up easy. I'd like to think I'd have a better chance than your average person. If you're worried about society failing, having a power source, a generator, having food sources, having water sources, it all makes perfect sense. I think more than anything, it's peace of mind.
Now you must go from prepping for the zombie apocalypse to rebuilding from it.
The main skills that you want, especially starting up, is you're looking for your carpenters, your metallurgists, your welders. You're looking for your former military personnel. You're looking for farmers.
It's going to be those who know how to kind of pivot, who know how to flex, who know how to be adaptable under extraordinary circumstances that are going to withstand those sorts of survival forces.
Really, at the end of the day, when you get right down to the brass tacks of it, it's not always going to be, the most fit or the most intelligent that survives. It's going to be the people that can cooperate and work with other people. If you don't pull that off, well, your time is limited. Let's just say that.
So is the zombie apocalypse just around the corner?
I wish I could predict. I wish I had the crystal ball. I really do,
I wouldn't rule anything out. I mean, if anything we've learned that Mother Nature is full of surprises.
It's a possibility in the future that something like this might happen, whether it's a zombie apocalypse virus or whether it's a flu or COVID virus. Something will happen and it will force the next step of human evolution.
But cheer up. All hope is not lost. We can put an end to all this doom and gloom before it even begins.
Can we prevent a zombie apocalypse? Absolutely. our biggest challenge right now is how do we respond and how do we develop the next gen technology